Right, we need to have a proper chat about Arteta, Arsenal, and what is going on at that football club because it looks like it's going to be another trophyless season for Arsenal. I do not see them turning around at St James's Park after going 2-0 behind with the form that Newcastle are in. The fact that Arsenal are struggling to score goals against the 10-man Man United, I don't see them scoring goals at St James's Park versus Newcastle. They're not going to win the Champions League and they're not going to win the Premier League unless they went big in this summer window and brought in some top level attackers because Bukayo Saka is your best attacker. He is out until March. Even when Bukayo Saka was fit, I've been saying Arsenal need an attacker. They need a ruthless player. And you lack ruthlessness. Now, is this Arteta's fault? Is this actually, a problem because of injuries and poor recruitment? Is Arteta to blame for some of that recruitment? We're going to talk about this because there's been this big meltdown on Twitter of people and some Arsenal fans screaming Arteta out and other ones saying, oh no, VAR and injuries. And, we're going to talk about that because right now, when I look at Arsenal, they dominated the Man United game if you're going to look at it in terms of possession, in terms of XG, but Man United are away from home with 10 men and Man United 14th in the league. So you expect Arsenal to dominate that game and you expect Arsenal to win that game. But yet again, Arsenal cannot convert their chances. Now, many Arsenal fans have been saying, but if you look at every game we've dropped points in, we deserve to win, we dominate the game, but we just don't convert our chances. What that tells me is you're doing very well in the defensive phase of the pitch and you're doing very well in the midfield phase of the pitch, but you're underperforming in the attacking phase of the pitch, which means your attackers are not good enough, which means you're not giving the opposition enough to think about. You're not being ruthless. And when I look at Arsenal, I see that with my eyes. I see you lack in transition. You lack a game changer, someone that's going to win a game. That could be Saka. But if you look at Real Madrid, they've got Vinicius Jr. He can win them a game. They've got Bellingham. He can pop up with a winner. They've got so many of those players. Liverpool, Mohamed Salah, but Gakpo, he's been coming up in big moments this season. He can win them a game. Jota can be very, very clutch when he wants. Luis Diaz is showing. But you look at Arsenal and you think, Odegaard has, but he's not a big scorer. Saka's the only player in that Arsenal team that can win games. And he is Arsenal's best player, but he is out until March. And I look at Arsenal and they didn't deserve to beat Man United because if you play against 10 men for over an hour and you can't get a second goal and you're still resulting on set pieces, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Man United fan, you don't deserve to win. Havertz missed sitters. Havertz should have won the game. Havertz should have scored, but he didn't. And that isn't necessarily Arteta's fault because Arteta's set Arsenal up and he's coached Arsenal in the sense of they should win the games. He's coached and set up Arsenal so well in defensive midfield that the attack should win the games, but the attack's not. But these are Arteta signings. These are Arteta's attack. So there's sort of two ways that this whole thing is being looked at. As EBL said here, XG minus these guys, they ain't ruthless finishers. Arteta's Arsenal at the same stage Pep City's were in the project, and he sold Sterling, brought in Alvarez and Haaland, two ruthless ball strikers. He was sick to death of controlling games and not winning. That's what EBL says. But then you have other people on the other side of Twitter saying this. 800 million spent, 1 out of 18 available trophies, 6 years in the job, 6 seasons, entire squad overhaul, eliminated from the FA Cup for the 3rd round for the 4th time in 5 years. The most backed coach in the world winning nothing. And it's interesting because just last year, Arsenal fans were telling me they got bigger fish to fry than the Carabao. I'm a Man United fan. I was bragging about our FA Cup and our Carabao Cup, despite it being rubbish. And Arsenal fans have been telling me they've got bigger fish to fry. But now there's this meltdown going on because it looks like it's going to be another trophyless season for Arsenal. Now, I don't think sacking Arteta right now and bringing in another coach is going to make Arsenal any better. Because I look at Arsenal's attack and it's pony. It's crap. Arteta is setting up Arsenal well in games, setting up them well enough to win the games, but the attackers are not converting. So it is not necessarily Arteta's fault. But Arteta has too much power, too many yes men around him, and the attackers and the players that are available in that Arsenal squad are all of Arteta's players that he wanted, that he brought in. So while he hasn't had any luck with injuries, and the Saka injury is a massive one, they are his attack. So he's not faultless. I don't think sacking Arteta right now. I think the lack of progress Arsenal have made this season, I understand it. When you look at the way that City have dropped off, and Arsenal have not taken advantage of City dropping off, and Liverpool have, and slots only just come in the door. I understand every element of frustration that Arsenal fans have. I 100% understand it. But I look at your attack, I look at your front three, and my biggest criticism is they are Arteta's players. But you ain't going to win anything with that front three, regardless of the manager. You know, Arteta, in my opinion, is setting up Arsenal to win games, but the final product in the final third is letting them down. And Saka being injured is a massive thing. Odegaard's injury didn't help. And ultimately, the biggest error Arsenal made was in the summer not going out and getting game winners, which part of that is on Arteta. But I don't think sacking a manager right now brings Arsenal up levels. I don't. Believe it or not, I don't. I wouldn't sack Arteta. I would evaluate everything at the end of the season, but I wouldn't sack him. Now, people will say, you know, but Arsenal, 5 years without trophy. 100%. A club like Arsenal needs to be winning trophies. And maybe the standards have gone down in Arsenal Football Club because you've got a manager that's getting you, you know, in the top four, and you were at a point where you weren't even getting in the top four for a little bit. Now you're back in the top four. But Arsenal, if you watch them under Wenger, you watch them, they were invincibles. They won big trophies, and they're not doing that under Arteta. They're not winning trophies. And you can look at that and say, well, have they gone backwards? Or you can look at it and say, well, actually, the injuries have had a big impact. You can't completely blame injuries. Liverpool have had injuries. City have had Rodri injured. They're rubbish, actually. But it's definitely had an impact. Now, what I think the problem is at Arsenal is this: lack of transitional threat, lack of ruthless finishers, lack of players capable of producing game-winning moments. Arsenal dominate games and create chances, but they can't convert them into wins. They can't win games. And ultimately, you do judge a manager off the games he wins. A lot of draws, a lot of drop points. You can't win games. You can't go to the Etihad and win, but Ruben Amorim's done that. Do you know what I mean? There's marks about Arteta when it comes to big games and when it comes to competition and management. There's definitely question marks around him there, how he's not going and winning those big games a lot of the time at the Etihad, and Ruben Amorim's done that. You know, the personnel in attack isn't good enough. And I think, look, had Arsenal had Isak playing instead of Kai Havertz, they'd probably beat Man United. If Arsenal had Isak and Gordon against Newcastle instead of Martinelli and Jesus, they probably beat Newcastle. And we're sitting here in a very different position with Arsenal looking like they're going to be in the Carabao Cup final and in the next round of the FA Cup. And maybe the questions around Arteta are different. Because I think those two, you know, if they had Gordon and Isak instead of Martinelli, Jesus, Havertz, yeah, I think Arsenal probably win their last two games. And I'm saying that as a Man United fan because Havertz probably should have scored. But the fact that Man United had 10 men for 60 minutes and Arsenal couldn't break them down, that is worrying because, yeah, Arteta's set up the midfield and defence perfectly. Really good. Moving, really good. Saka's got a lot of opportunity, but they're not converting. Because Arsenal lack transitional threat. They're no threat in transition. They like the ball to feet. They're slow, so they're predictable. They're easy to defend against, and they lack ruthless finishes. They lack game-winning moments. People, you know, at Man United were frustrated with Bruno Fernandes at times because he would do a hero pass or do a shot, and people said, oh, can't Bruno keep the ball better like Odegaard? But Bruno's a game winner. There's some Man United fans that like Odegaard more because he has elements of control, but Bruno scored. Odegaard didn't yesterday. Do you know what I mean? Bruno scored his penalty as well. Because Bruno Fernandes is a game winner. And when Man United had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge and we came second, which is what Arteta's done with Arsenal, come second, we weren't great. And Arsenal were more dominant in the seasons that you come second than Ole was with Man United. Arsenal were very more dominant. You know, their all-round football was better. But Man United came second with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because Bruno and Rashford were being game winners that season. And in those games where you just can't break down that team and you're not at your best, you need game winners. And Arsenal lack that because the personnel in Arsenal's attack is not good enough. And while I don't think that Arsenal being bad right now is completely on Arteta, and I think there is an overreaction about Arteta, he's a fraud, worst manager ever. He got you within 1 point of Manchester City last year, which is a crazy achievement. Where he took you over to where you are now, you've made levels of progress. But my question on Arteta is he has too many yes men around him and he has too much control on recruitment. Because I look at that attack and it's pony. And it's not Arteta's fault that Havertz is missing that. But Arteta wanted Havertz. And whether that's on the Arsenal board, whether that's on Arteta, you can debate that. But what I will say, this is on the Arsenal board. I said this on Twitter. I'd be fuming if I was an Arsenal fan because Arsenal have been crying out for attackers, particularly even when Saka was fit. They needed another attacker. No Saka, huge lack of quality in the final third, and Man City are about to sign Mamouche. Liverpool, I don't know if they're signing one. They don't need to sign anyone. Gakpo's flying, Salah's flying. But Liverpool still inquired about Kvaratskhelia. Kvaratskhelia and Mamouche walked into Arsenal and level up that side. Kvaratskhelia is a level ahead of Martinelli. And Arsenal are sitting there and doing nothing. And I don't know why. I don't know why. the board is sitting there and doing nothing. Because if you want to win a trophy, because you are still in the Champions League, your only chance of doing that is having a Havertz, Helen, Mamouche type player, Shocker Isak. You're never going to get Isak. You're not going to get Isak. But why aren't Arsenal going out there looking for opportunities? Looking for actual game winners? Havertz, Helia. Why? That's what I'm going to say. Why aren't they doing that? Because who is to blame? Because the argument is half the fans are losing their mind on Twitter. Arteta's not won a trophy, but like last year you were telling me you had bigger fish to fry. You don't care about the FA Cup and Carabao Cup, and now you're crying about it. So make your mind up. And then the other half is saying, well, look at the injuries Arsenal had. Look at the setbacks, Saka, Odegaard. Look at the fact that they're dominating games and Havertz is missing sitters. That's not Arteta's fault. And I think both fans are right to an extent. Arsenal should be winning trophies. But does sacking Arteta and bringing in a new manager right now with that same same crop of attackers going to make any difference? No, the attackers aren't good enough. I don't want to be brutal with you Arsenal fans, and some Arsenal fans won't like me for saying this, but Martinelli is your best fit attacker right now. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Sterling was your best attacker versus Manchester United. That is not a good thing. Injuries, transfer the window, lack of luck with VAR. But look, Arsenal fans have been telling me the decisions have gone against us this season. I agree with you. Elements. I think, Rice getting a red card, Trossard getting a red card. I get it in those two games. And 10 men is difficult. But Man United went to the Emirates with 10 men and you couldn't beat us. You could still win games with 10 men. Liverpool had done that. Liverpool went behind against Fulham 10 men and still showed something. Do you know what I mean? Yes, I don't think it was a penalty for Brighton. I agree with you. It's soft. But decisions go against a lot of people. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. It went your way against Manchester United. You got a penalty. You got to play against 10 men. You didn't win. So while I think that, yes, Arsenal definitely have lacked that luck with VAR this season, you've dominated games and your forwards aren't converting and you've not had that luck. You need to improve. And I understand the frustration with Arteta because when City are dropping off and Slot and Liverpool are coming out and they are just winning games and they look really good and Slot's only just got in the door and he basically didn't get backed unless you count Chiesa, who's only played about 2 games, and the Liverpool attack is ruthless. I'd be fuming if I was an Arsenal fan. Liverpool, new manager, they didn't do as well as you guys last season and they're flying. And of course, injuries make a difference. But they're flying and Slot's only just come in and Arteta's had loads of time. I get the frustration. But my opinion is this. I don't think sacking Arteta is the answer right now. I don't. As a lot of Arsenal fans cry about sacking Arteta, I would not sack Arteta because you were dominating games. Havertz is pony. Havertz is missing. He was pony yesterday. He absolutely was. But what I will say this is, Arteta is to blame in terms of why didn't he go out to get that striker? I know he looked at Sesko, but why did he insist on Marino, who I think it could be a Gundogan type player, but when he needed that winger? Why Martinelli wasn't good last season? Why was he willing to rely on Martinelli again? I guess Havertz, the second half of the season, went on a run with scoring lots of goals. I understand that. But why was he going, I'll get another defender, when your defence was unbelievable last season and Lewis Skelly's coming and Calafiori's not even starting games. And Timber was going to be basically a new signing because he was out last year. And I think Calafiori is a good addition. I think he's going to be a good addition for you long term, and I think you'll see that long term. But I do think that sacking Arteta isn't going to make a difference with those current crop of players. Your attack isn't good enough. Arteta is setting you up to win games, but you're not winning games because of the lack of ruthlessness in attack. And that will come down to Arteta not winning trophies and not winning games. People will look at that. But I do think that is a personnel issue, not a manager issue. But what I will say is the recruitment and the control that Arteta has on going for Havertz, going for Jesus that wasn't wanted by Man City, Zinchenko that wasn't wanted by Man City. That is where you have to look at Arteta and say, he's had too much control. He's got too many yes men around him. Now, I look at Arsenal. For expected goals against, they're second. Only Liverpool have a better defensive record than them. For expected goals, they're second. Only Liverpool have a better expected goals record than them. Liverpool's expected goals record than them, expected goals compared to them is massive. And look, Arsenal are underperforming their XG. They are underperforming their XG. But you look at, Liverpool, and look, their XG is much higher than Arsenal's. Liverpool's attack is much better than Arsenal's. Arsenal are second for XG despite not being the best in attack, and that is suggesting they are creating the chances, they're not converting. And then if you look at points, they're also second for expected points. So Arsenal are very, very comfortably second. They're very, very comfortably second in the league for everything. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It shows that, the underlying numbers have them second. But when Slot has just come in and when Man City have been as bad as they have been, Arsenal want to be first. When we took the title to the final day last year, you want to be in first place. So I get the frustration because I've seen a lot of this. Mikel Arteta is the only manager in the world after 5 seasons, £700 million spent, is completely resolved of all and any blame regarding squad planning. No Odegaard backup, no Saka backup, no proper 9, lack of fit fullbacks, not his problem. Arteta, I think, is to blame when it comes to the personnel in the squad, when it comes to elements of recruitment. Not completely, because I know that the Arsenal owners are rubbish owners. I know that they should be spending in January. They should be going for Omar Mamouche if City are going for them. They're not. Arsenal owners, of course, have elements to blame. And I don't think Arteta should be sacked. And I think there is an overreaction online. And I think that it is the personnel not performing. It's not to do with the tactics. But this is his personnel. And I think there is a point to be made there. So as I said, I don't want to repeat too much. But they were so close to winning the league. They made Marina, Calafiori, Sterling signings, and they've regressed this season. Injuries are a big reason why they've regressed, but they've regressed this season. And when City have dropped off, they've not taken advantage of that, so it's disappointing. Slot comes in, only signings to Gazer, top of the league, Liverpool are balling out. I understand that. If I'm an Arsenal fan, I'm seething, especially when Liverpool are then linked to Havertz, Elliott, and Arsenal doing nothing. But they haven't had the luck. They don't have the players in the tap. They need to spend in the tap, but they haven't had the luck. Ben White is a big miss. Saka's huge miss. Ranieri Jesus now out. Havertz struggling. Odegaard, in my opinion, struggling without Saka. They're completely dropping off. And that's something that Mikel Arteta needs to work on. He needs to find a way to get Arsenal to have more ideas in attack. They lack transitional threat. They need recruitment. And Gyökeres and Isak, a clinical player, would be good. A left centre mid, I think, is needed because there's still questions over Marino. Partey and Jorginho will go. Striker, a left wing, is all needed. Let me know your thoughts, Arsenal fans and non-Arsenal fans, down below. I'm trying to look at this in a neutral perspective because I understand frustration, but I also just think your players aren't great, and I think Arteta is doing enough and the players are letting him down. It's very mixed opinions, but let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.